A sound mind and a sound body is a short but full description of a happy state in this world. He that has these two has little more to wish for, and he that wants either of them will be little the better for anything else. John Locke of England. A date in the dark. Waves of light shifted over my eyelids as I bobbed up and down, the gentle and ever-moving current around me, drifting with the peace often found at the end of a hard day's work. I inhaled the mild tang I had grown used to, but I still preferred the natural scent of ocean salt. Still, I was in a place of peace and even belonging, at the very edge of slumber when it attacked. It grasped my arm and pulled hard, sending my body into a full panic. My arm whipped away and my leg lifted a knee into a brown blob. I reached for my trident and swung it through the water, where the blob grabbed and pulled on it, bringing me closer. I willed the water to push us away, and saw blood as the trident's tip cut the blob. I saw now that the blob was human-shaped, and realized it was because it was a human, a boy wearing the khaki uniform of the school. Realizing my mistake, I willed the pool water of West High Swimming Hall to pull us both out and onto the edge. "What the fuck, you bitch?" was the boy's first words, who gasped of air. "I'm sorry, I thought you were attacking me." "I was trying to save you!" He stood up, dripping water around him. "I thought you were drowning!" "And I am so thankful, and I super duper deluxe appreciate it, I really do. But I don't drown," I said in a breath with as much embarrassing gratitude as possible. This was not the first time this has happened. I'm hydro-respirative. I can breathe underwater. "Well, how was I supposed to know that?" "Well, my swimsuit does imply as much." I gestured to my one-piece diving suit. It was purple with pink markings, made of cute little triangles touching tips, with a line drawn through the point. It's supposed to be based off the alchemy sign for water being turned into the sign for air, and also making a shape pointed 8, the atomic number for oxygen. Though I guess it's a very precise symbol, kind of unknown outside of the Navy. But still, I appreciate you trying to help. Also, the colors help with hiding underwater. "Whatever," he said, trying to shake off the water and pulling off a shoe. He really had jumped in without thinking. I looked him over, mostly lean and a bit shorter than me, and his face had a strange angle to it. He was far from gorgeous, but he had a charm to him. "I'm serious." I started to will some of the water off of him and his clothes. He went from soaked to just damp. In fact, let me show my appreciation. "Let's go on a date." "What?" He gave a confused look. "A date?" "Yeah, a date. Unless you're in a committed romance." "No. Let's just... I haven't seen you around, so I guess you're a freshman, but I'm a senior. Is that a problem?" Kinda. I mean, I'm going to graduate this year and be off to cadet school." "I'm not asking you to marry me, silly. Just take me on a date. It doesn't have to be fancy. In fact, I'll cover it. I'm thanking you, after all." Okay. Sure. I'm William Decker." Samantha VonBec. We shook hands and exchanged phone numbers, with plans to decide things tonight. I went to the locker room and decided to skip changing, except for my shoes. I had a bounce in my steps as I grabbed my backpack and skipped out of the pool hall and straight into another boy. "I'm sorry," I said, stepping back. "I bet you are," the boy said. He was clearly a wizard, as he wore a light blue robe and carried a long wooden staff. "Excuse me?" I said, confused. "You're quite the fast one," he said with clear contempt. "Getting a date before you knew his name." "Excuse you?" I snapped, turning to anger. I'm allowed to propose to whomever I want. There's no rule that I have to know anything about them. Indeed, there's no rule against you flaunting yourself around. I was starting to get upset. Who the hell are you, and why should I care? I am known as Alphonse the Striker, and I am... Alphonse introduced and titled himself with boastful pride, but then paused for just a beat and looked away with disdain. Confidants with William. That's when I noticed it. I'm not a flaunter per se, but when you talk to as many boys as I do, you notice patterns. I was in a modest but still shapely swimsuit, and Alphonse hadn't swept his eyes over me once. Now, of course, he could have been trying to make a power front, but with his pausing about William, I was able to guess the real deal. You like William. Like him, don't you? I asked with sympathy. How dare you? Yes, I am openly gay, but I respect William. I would never act in such a way. He defended himself, giving more information than needed. I believe you, but you still like him, and I just swooped in on him. I see William as he is, but again, I would never... But you want him. No, he snapped. I have nothing to say to you. He turned to leave, but I reached for his arm to stop him. Wait, please, tell me, I begged. I don't want to come between you two, and you clearly love him. As a confidant, he said. Just as a confidant? Yes, because he's not gay, so I would never, like I said. But there's something else to it. It's just sometimes he's... You don't know for sure if he's straight. He says he is. But sometimes he doesn't act like it, I guessed. I'm done here. He shook me off and walked off. I continued to head home thinking about William and Alphonse. I hadn't thought about watching William at the time, but I couldn't remember him looking me over. Most people were straight, but as the saying goes, everyone has two uncles. Being gay was just something that happened and nobody was at fault for it. But still, some people just assumed they were straight well into adulthood. "Sup, Sammy?" someone called out. Assuming they meant me, I looked around to see Frank and his confidant, Herrick. They were carrying a large wooden box between them that they had set down. "You got detention too?" "No. Is that what you're doing here?" "Yeah, we got ourselves a detention," Frank informed me. "That is a lie," Herrick barked. "We did not get us a detention. You got us a detention." "Fair enough." Frank nodded his head to that. "What are you doing, Sammy?" "Heading home right now to think about a problem." "What kind of problem?" "The boy kind of problem." "Hey, we're boys. Maybe we can help." Herrick pinched his brow, muttering, "Don't just volunteer us for whatever." "Who's the boy?" Frank asked as if he didn't hear. At that time, William and Alphonse walked around the other corner of the school, laughing away. I pointed over to them. Them. "Ah, young love is adorable," Frank cooed. "But that's just how the cards get dealt." "What do you mean?" I asked, noting his word choice. "Some guys are gay. Same with gals. But it still sucks when they're pretty. You have my sympathy." "What makes you think they're gay?" Frank opened his mouth and his face went blank. Well, they're dating, right? Boyfriends?" "Best friends," I corrected. "They're confidants." "Oh, I see. And only one of them is gay." "Oh, what?" "Only the wizard in blue is gay," I explained. "Do you think the other boy's gay?" Frank narrowed his eyes, scanning the two. "I think so." "What makes you think that?" He narrowed his eyes and rubbed his chin. "Don't know." Herrick chimed in. "Frank seems to know the will of others' hearts. If he says two people are wanting each other, then I don't doubt him." That decided it. I had to settle this. I bounced over and jumped in front of the boys. They flinched and readied themselves before they recognized me, saying together, "You!" William looked to Alphonse. "You know her?" "Passively," Alphonse answered. "What do you want?" "We need to set up our date, William." I rocked back and forth, swaying my hips. "You got any ideas?" "Oh, dinner and a show is the standard, right, Al?" William asked. "Yes, as I am told," William said with a tone flatter than a puddle. "Neat." I leaned forward. "So I know they do 2 for 1 on Tuesday at the Picture House. So how about tomorrow?" Sure," William said, and then looked over to Alphonse. I'm sure he would have said he was asking for his best friend's opinion, but I could see it now. William was in love with Alphonse, and I was going to spark the realization in him. "All right. We meet after school, grab a bite, and head on over," I confirmed. "Yeah, sure," William agreed half-hearted. "Hey, I thought we were supposed to do this over the phone." I didn't respond, as I was already skipping away. The next day after class I found William, and we headed to the arcade. The food court wasn't much, but it was a place for hungry kids to buy food, even going as far as to allow purchases with game credits and tickets. "So tell me about yourself," William said, taking a bite into a slice of pizza. "I know you can breathe underwater." "I can do more than that. I can also control water. Make it move how I want with willpower." "That's impossible," William said with amazement rather than disbelief. "Alphonse once told me that infusing magic into water was something that no one could do. Because the mana flows around and breaks apart. Yeah, but I channel power through the universe itself." I explained my own understanding of my powers. "What about you?" "Me? Oh, it's nothing." He waved a hand dismissively. "Just some ancient bloodline weapon." "Oh? I have a friend who uses a family heirloom too." "Yeah, it's kind of common because binding magic to blood is an effective method of preserving magic. Though why the water thing doesn't apply to blood, I don't know." "Because it's not the actual blood. It's like the bones or something." "Oh, that makes sense." He took another bite. "Still bull. I never wanted it. The power or the legacy. Apparently my dad didn't even want me." "That's so sad. I'm incredibly lucky myself," I said, then told my own story. I never asked for my powers either. But when I was born, DDH agents came to my parents and told them the score. They were very accepting of it, and even moved to America when they were asked." "Why did they move to America?" William raised an eyebrow. "To be closer to a DDH office. It was either here, France, or Russia, and they already spoke English, so here we are." We talked a bit more and headed to the picture house. The picture house was an old stage theater turned movie theater. It showed movies, but it also showed shorter series shows that were often converted to or from television broadcasting. Personal televisions were a luxury during the many years of war the world went through, but the picture house was a bunker in its own right. So people would gather and let their guard down, knowing that if attacked they would have time to respond. Now it was a place for families to gather and see the latest entry of the Smoking in the Rain series. We ordered tickets for the main hall. They were smaller side halls showing reruns that were free, and got popcorn and soda. I paid for everything like I said I would, and we sat down for the show. "Hey, watch it, jerk!" we heard someone yell, and turned to see Alphonse, as well as Frake and Heinrich. Both of them had a girl by them. The same girls I saw them with at the concert a few weeks ago. "Frank?" I called as William called out. "Al? What are you doing here?" "Watching a show," Alphonse said. "And you, Frank?" I asked. "We're here on a date. A triple date." Frank gestured to the girls. "So, who's your date, Al?" William asked with a tone of nervous curiosity. "Me," said a deep, gruff voice from a boy who I recognized as the boy I saw making out with Heinrich's date. He wore a biker jacket and about a platoon's worth of hair grease in a slick-back style. "Girlie said she liked my bike." Heinrich's date elbowed him. "I meant, Boyo said he liked my bike." He corrected himself and wrapped an uneasy arm around Alphonse's uneasy shoulder. "Okay," William said. "I didn't know you liked that." "Yo! Double date! Hell yeah!" Frank yelled and jumped over to sit next to me, landing with a wink of the eye. "Oh, sure." I turned to William as Alphonse and Grease Stew passed by the other side. "Are you okay with this?" "Oh, sure." William nodded, shooting a look to Alphonse. I exchanged names with the girls, Tessa Green, a fairykin who went to our school, and Isabella Ishtar, who was Heinrich's cousin. "Ladies and gentlemen of all ranks, the show will start soon," an intercom announced, and within the minute the lights dimmed and the projector flickered to light, beginning another installment of Smoking in the Rain. Originally a book, Smoking in the Rain was a story of an aristocrat turned soldier going through the international conflict. It covered all 30 years of the war and the many lives and trials of the soldiers. I read the book a dozen times and watched the movie adaptation, which cut out a lot of the personal and romantic movies, like the one currently playing, where the once wealthy nobleman reunites with his childhood friend, well, technically early adult friend, and stepsister because his elderly father married her middle-aged mother. But that only lasted 3 years until the war starts, and the dad dies in a bomb strike, and the son joins the army and never sees the girl until women join the front lines 15 years into the conflict. Point is, it's one of the most romantic movies in the book, and the movie just skipped it. And now it was being presented in widescreen, and I was tearing up. I wrapped my arm around William and leaned my head on him. He tensed up, and I remembered why I was here. I was so engrossed by the show I couldn't concentrate. Luckily, William moved me forward. "Big moment, huh?" he asked in a whisper. "I never read the book." "It's really good," I said and pulled a handkerchief over my face. "Can you imagine being separated from the one who completes you?" "I guess," he shrugged in his seat. "But that's not super special, right? I mean, it's just one unique person." "Well, sure, but it's a special person who fills your life with the light of love. A warm, peaceful light that shines into the future." I snuggled closer as I spoke. William seemed to be deep in thought. "But that's not love or romance. That's just caring a lot, like me and Al." "Well, yeah, confidants are important, but that's more about the now times. More, you can't think of a world without them, rather than thinking of a future with them." "I guess so." "Is there anyone you like?" "Oh, not really. But I'm still in high school." "Ever kissed anyone?" I asked gender neutrally. He squirmed and cast his eyes, muttering under his breath, "Still in high school." I was going to follow up when the projector cut out and the sound stopped. The theater was in complete silence for a full second, and then the projector room exploded. Fire shot out of the opening, and several people started barking out call signs as they organized an exit plan, but they weren't able to open the doors. An old man claiming to be an army captain yelled over everyone to be quiet and stay calm. The people managed to keep their sense about them, which allowed the intercom system to be heard without any trouble. "Attention all." The voice on the intercom was smooth and strong. "We are sorry to interrupt such a lovely evening for everyone, but we are here to bring a message from the Brotherhood of Mutants." Instantly, the crowd's attitude shifted from scared and confused to angry, scared, and confused. "This show series of the classic novel Smoking in the Rain covers in great detail the events of the horrible decades of the Great Wars. "There is nothing great about the wars," Heinrich shouted, and the others joined in agreement, but the voice didn't hear, or maybe didn't care. "And yet, it ignores the several instances of proud mutants who fought for their nation. And so, to right this wrong, no one will be leaving until we get an official apology and an official release showing the events of our proud mutant forefather." "Man, you think one theater of people will move the world?" Frank called out, and the voice laughed. "Of course not," it said in response. "That's why we're locking down every showing in the country. We will be heard." The intercom went out, and the people started to mutter among themselves. They seemed to be planning on what to do, whether they should try to rush them and force their way out. They talked until Frank stepped up on a chair and called for silence. "Everyone, relax. Me and my friends will handle this." "What? You're just a kid," the army captain pointed out. "Yes, but we're demi-humans." "Great. More mutants. Just what we need." A random person in the crowd groaned. "We're not... It doesn't matter. Just everyone stay here and stay calm. Come on, guys." So it was me, William, Alphonse, Gristu, Henrik, Tessa, and lastly, Frank lined up to go face these hooligans, with Isabella being told to stay behind. We moved to one of the staff-only doors and found it was unlocked. Slipping through, we tried to sneak through, only to turn a corner into two masked thugs who turned to see us. "Should have stayed seated, little punks," one of them said as he raised an arm to ready an attack, but didn't have a chance to fire it off as Gristu leaped forward in a blink and whacked him with a long copper pipe. Where he got it was unknown, but his hit downed the slim thug, and Gristu turned on the other swing again. The other thug was shorter than average, but had large muscles. The thick one was also faster as he caught the pipe in his hands and squeezed it. He was clearly strong as the pipe bent under his hand, and he used that strength to punch Gristu in the gut, sending him into the wall. After that, Thick Thug turned back to us and got blasted away himself by a triple attack from Heinrich, Tessa, and Alphonse. "Right! Good news? We got 2 down," Frank said, looking around to the sounds of movement surrounding us. "Bad news? We lost the element of surprise." "Fine by me," Gristu said, standing himself up and grabbing his pipe. "Let 'em line themselves up." "As much as I would like to brawl all night, we need to find their leader and end this as fast as possible," said Frank. "Now, I'm guessing their leader is going to be in the projector room or the manager's room. I am detecting a high power level from both locations," Heinrich explained, and was backed by both Alphonse and Tessa. "So let's split up and double time it," Gristu said, starting down the hall. "My gut says projector room, so I'm going there." William and Alphonse were the strongest among us, and a full tag team. So they decided to head to the office by themselves and leave the rest of us to go to the projector room. "Where did you get a pipe?" I asked Gristu as we headed through the halls. "Des brought it in for me," he answered. "I used to carry an iron one, but I switched to copper after meeting my sweetheart." He stopped and looked back with concern. "Oh wait, do I still gotta act homo?" "No, sweetie," Tess answered. "Not right now." "So you two are together," I said, realizing I was right about the concert memory. "Why are you doing this whole act?" "'Cause I owe a favor to Heinrich," Tessa said. "And I'll do anything for my fairy princess," Gristu said with a grin. "Plus, I'm also a romantic." We had made it to the projector room without further trouble. Apparently William and Alphonse were causing a lot of trouble themselves, and so we had nothing to deal with as Gristu kicked the door open and we jumped in ready to fight. In there we found just one man standing alone, looking down at the people in the theater. A cigar lit in his mouth under a paintbrush of a mustache. He was dressed in a suit and he had his hair combed back, showing his recently balding head. He was calm and in charge. "Told ya! My gut is never wrong." Gristu grinned and lifted his pipe to point at the man. You're the head bastard here, aren't you? I am, the man answered without batting an eye. He just ashed his cigar out the window and continued on. They call me Pops. You lot must be the young idiots who think you can just push my family around. You damn right, you bastard! Greasedew lifted the pipe and prepared to charge forward, but was stopped by Frank. Hold 1 second, Frank said, and stepped in front of all of us and addressed the man with full respect. Mr. Pops, sir, I understand you're angry about the show. It's a valid complaint, but please, let these people go. Pops looked to Frank and scanned him up and down before looking over us all. He grinned and set his cigar down. You're some good kids, I can tell. Good hearts. I fully intend to release everyone unharmed after, and only after, our demands were met. But until then... Pop stepped out to the middle of the room and took a fighting stance. Let's brawl. Hell yeah! Greasedew leaped forward, bringing his pipe down on Pops, who stretched his hand out and focused energy into an explosion that threw Greasedew back again. Frank had already moved forward to bring up a sword into a stab that Pops sidestepped away from and into a fire blast from Heinrich that was amplified by Tess. All the while I couldn't do anything. I had my trident, but I couldn't win in a melee. I scanned the area, trying to find what I needed. What are you looking for? Greasedew asked as he readied to charge again. Water, I said. I need some to fight. You didn't bring any with you? It's not exactly a lightweight weapon. I can usually count on plumbing, but I can't sense any around. It's an old building. Try looking up. Greasedew charged forward. I did just that, and saw above me lines of brass piping with nozzles through them. A sprinkler system. I started looking around again. If the system was automatic, it would have set off already, which meant it didn't work or it needed a manual trigger, which I found on the far wall. Readying myself, I swung my trident and bent my legs to leap forward. Greasedew and Frank were taking swings, and Heinrich and Tessa were trying to support them. But Pops was too strong and too skilled. His power seemed to be making explosions. He would wave an arm or flex a muscle, and a blast wave would launch out. He used it offensive and defensively. I waited for just a moment for Frank and Greasedew to attack at the same time. Pop flexed and blew them away, and that's when I made my move. I ran forward and stabbed my trident completely forward. It was a weak and foolish attack, with no hope of actually hitting Pop's head on, but he took the bait. I've fought strong opponents before. Adrian, Simi, and even my friend Brick. When they fight multiple opponents, they all have the tendency to throw enemies around when possible, to reduce the number of immediate threats by moving them away and giving themselves space. Pops was definitely strong, as he reflectively grabbed my trident and turned his body to throw me to the other side of the room. I repositioned myself and landed on my feet, right next to the fire alarm. I pulled the alarm and the system roared to life, showering water and noise down. I pulled the water to me, and when I had enough, I launched a wave at Pops. Pops had been knocked off his guard by the alarm going off, but had recovered enough to unleash an explosion blasting the bulk of the mass apart, which just flowed past him, where I reformed it even bigger and slammed it back again, knocking him to the floor on his knees. Greasedew jumped on the chance, literally, and slammed his pipe down on Pops. Pops gasped out of breath and slipped further down, but managed to lift a hand and send a full blast point blank. Greasedew flew off almost into a wall before I caught him in a wave and set him down. I readied the still growing mass of water to slam against Pop's skin, but was caught off guard by another full blast at range which slammed me against the wall. Frank, Heinrich, and Tessa continued to fight, but without me pulling water away, Heinrich was much weaker and couldn't keep up. He went down and didn't get back up. Frank kept up the pace thanks to Tessa's help, but during a wider opening, Pops managed to grab Tessa by the neck. He pulled out a knife and plunged it into Tessa's collar and dropped her. He took a deep breath and sighed. Sorry for the iron, girlie, but I can't have you. He was cut off by Greasedew bashing his head with a copper pipe. You rat bastard! I'll kill you! Greasedew yelled and started fighting in a rage. Pops kept up his attack, but instead of dodging and blocking, Greasedew took them directly and just shrugged them off, swinging harder than ever. Greasedew's increased viciousness was paying off too, as he managed to land several direct hits, even managing to break a bone in Pops' forearm. Frank took the opening to slice down on Pops, cutting him and his suit down the chest. I managed to get back on my feet and started drawing water back to me, joining them as I stepped forward. It was 3 against 1, and we had the advantage. All right, children, that's enough. Another voice came from the door. We all looked to see a tall, slim woman holding a revolver to Alphonse's head. Playtime is over. The woman gestured everyone forward into the room. Alphonse was dragged in by another thug, and William was behind them, being held with a knife to his throat. They were both thrown to the wet ground, and each of them had a thug with a foot in their back. I thought you two were the strongest, Greasedew panted. We were holding our own, and even winning at first, William said. But then they tripped the fire alarm, and the water ruined my magic, Alphonse finished. A low-brow tactic from a bunch of low-brow mutant scumbags. A thug came up and kicked him in the ribs, sending him in the coughs. Real easy to act tough behind a magic shield, you two-bit magician, the thug said and laughed. Enough, the woman said, likely the second in command, as they all obeyed. This is over. The mundanes below are bystanders, but you lot made a full challenge, so either surrender or I kill them. We all settled into a standoff. The woman looked to Pops' bloody body. Sir, there's a call on hold in the main office. Pops nodded and rolled his shoulder. Thank you. Be sure to keep them firm under your thumb. They managed to actually challenge me. With that, Pops left the rest of us in a standoff. Cowards! Greasedew pointed his pipe at her. Face me head on! 1-on-1! I'll break your skull! In response, the woman aimed her revolver and fired once into Greasedew's guts. I cried and rushed over to him. He was alive, but down for the count. I did what first aid I could to keep the bleeding down. Like I said, this is over. He's right. You're all cowards, Alphonse said, still coughing. Pathetic, good-for-nothing cowards with more power than you deserve. Shut up, if you know what's best for you, the thug on top of him said, putting more weight down on him. Hey, I've heard these guys need their hands to do their hoodoo. I say we lop one of his arms off. What? William shouted. He was beaten badly and even bleeding. Don't you dare touch him! Of course his cries were in vain as the thug on him slammed his foot down on his back. The other thugs continued laughing at Alphonse, who didn't yield on his scowl or insults. Come on, boss, one of the thugs said as he pulled out a fire axe. Might as well teach him a lesson. There's nothing to learn from you worthless lot, Alphonse said through gritted teeth, which earned a kick in his teeth. Ow! William shouted before turning his gaze to the woman. Why are you letting them do that? You already have him down. Inflicting more injury is a violation. The woman looked at William with vile hatred. He deserves it. Deserves it? For talking back? You have a gun to his head, and you can't stand being bad-mouthed? William shouted at the top of his lungs until the thug dropped his knee into William's back. She's right, Alphonse said, spitting teeth and blood, because my words are the most painful thing they can hear. The truth of how worthless they are. Another kick in his head. The thugs were enraged. One of them grabbed an arm and pulled it, yelling, Off with his arm! William screamed for Alphonse as he struggled under the thug holding him. You better think twice, Frank shouted, because I won't hold back after. Ha! The axe with a thug laughed. You think we're scared of you? Of course you are. Alphonse spoke again. Look at you all. You're scared of a damn theater show. You're more pathetic than children. That's it! The axe thug lifted the axe and slammed it down. The room was filled with blood and fire. Fire from Heinrich, who had waited until the last second to unleash a fire blast at the axe thug, pushing him off enough to miss his swing. Blood from the now dismembered arm of the axe thug as William Decker sliced through him with a blade of black bone. A dark mist surrounded him as he turned the blade to the thugs holding Alphonse, cutting gashes into them. The woman in charge turned her gun on William, only for him to knock it away in a bloody slice, and got pinned to the wall as William rammed into her and stabbed her in the gut. When William pulled his sword out, she went limp and fell against the wall. The moment had only a single beat of peace as gunshots came from the hallway. More thugs were shooting at William. The bullets did nothing as William prepared to charge, but stopped at the call of Alphonse. No! Enough! Alphonse reached a hand to the door and unleashed a force of will, which Heinrich added to, creating another one of those supercharged fire attacks. When the fire faded, Heinrich rushed to the door and slammed it shut, giving us a moment to breathe. Who's hurt and how? Frank called out. Only Greasedew and Tessa were critically injured. Everyone else was bruised up or the enemy. Heinrich and Frank tended to them as William and Alphonse talked. I'm sorry, William. Alphonse started. If I could keep my pride down, then... No. You were downed and captured. There's no excuse for them. It's just... I know you hate becoming that. And because of me... William grabbed Alphonse's face and forced their eyes together. I'm happy to be this for you. They looked into each other's eyes and then came together for a kiss. Not a big passionate kiss, a simple caring one. They came apart, both of them with blood around their mouths. William wiped at his mouth and said as much. Blood. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have taunted them so much, Alphonse said, but was cut off by William kissing him again. In that moment, between everything terrible happening, I was happy for them. The moment was ended by the thumping sound of heavy footfall. We all braced ourselves as the door was kicked in by a man in a trench coat. He aimed a huge gun at the room, shouting, Freeze! Agent Danforth of the DDH! Hands up! We all raised hands. Frank stepped up with relief. Thank the gods! We need a medic, ASAP! The man scanned the room and leaned out to call out, Cass! 7 more, 2 down, bad! 7 bodies, 2 bleeders, got it! A voice called back, joined by the sound of gunfire. He returned to us and asked, We're still getting the area under control. Hold tight. And like that he headed out and closed the door. Frank guarded while the rest of us tended to Tessa and Greasedew. Eventually the sounds of battle died down, and again banging came from the door. This time it was a police officer with medical personnel. We were all either escorted or carried outside and asked to stay for statements. They removed the knife from Tessa and patched her and Greasedew up. Soon they were both up and awake. What a dickhead, Tessa said, rolling her arm. Hot tip, next time, just pull the knife out. My body can heal itself with fairy magic. Could have helped more, too. Sorry about that, Frank said. Not super familiar with fairy magic, or biology, or anything about fairies, really. Tess waved him off with a smile. It's fine. Just know iron hurts us more than anything else. Hey, that reminds me, I said, getting my own nerve back and pointing to Greasedew. What kind of demi-human are you? Me? A demi-human? Greasedew laughed at that until he fell into a cough. He recovered and looked back. I'm not any kind of demi-human. I'm as mundane as they come. What? But you fought so hard. I was taken aback at this. I couldn't believe he was really just a mundane human, with all the confidence and fury he fought with. Well, he reached out and took Tessa's hand in his. That's the power of love, I guess. Even a nothing street punk like me can go toe-to-toe with demigods if needed. Hear, hear, brother! Frank cheered and was about to lead a chorus when William shouted out, Hey, wait a minute! He stepped up from where he had been talking with Alphonse. I thought you were gay. And you thought you were straight. Shows what you know. Greasedew slapped back and left William stunned. Come on, William, Alphonse said, smiling and taking William's hand in his own. Let's find a place for some peace, and I'll guide you into meditation. Yeah, okay, sure. William awkwardly let Alphonse pull him along. But after looking to his new love, he found shrewdness and fell into pace. Well, ain't that nice, Greasedew said, smiling, and then addressed Heinrich. By the way, you owe us another favor. What? How so? Heinrich scowled. We got hurt bad. You gotta repay that. He's right, you know, Tessa confirmed. Heinrich groaned. But this was all Frank's idea, so why me? 'Cause you called the favor in, Tessa said with a grin, which sent Heinrich into another groan and the rest of us into laughs. After our statements, Tessa and Greasedew were taken to the hospital. Heinrich confirmed that Isabella had been sent home with the rest of the mundanes. William and Alphonse disappeared on us, but we didn't look very hard for risk of interrupting anything, leaving Frank, Heinrich, and myself waiting for our bus together. Well, I'm glad all that worked out, I said. William realized Alphonse was his true love, just as I hoped. Wait, you planned all of this? Frank asked. Oh, no. My original plan was to keep hitting on William until you realized he wasn't interested. But I got distracted by the show, which we didn't even finish. Sucks. Well, things can either go right or go wrong. So just take what's left, Frank said with a tone of wisdom. And he was right. The day had gone so far astray, but in the end everything worked out in our favor. And I couldn't ask for much more.